and its diagonal is 20, what's x? How do we solve that problem right there?
The square.
This is a right angle.
So we know that both legs have to be the same since it's a square.
Right. That's why I've labeled them x and x. Okay. We still have to solve for x though. What kind of an equation can I write now based on this?
X plus x or x squared plus x squared equals 20 squared.
Good. Now let's solve that equation.
So it'd be x power 4.
Okay, when you're adding exponentials, you just add them. This is like I have one apple and I'm adding another apple, so I have 2 apples.
Oh, 2x to the power 2?
Right, it's not the same as x squared times x squared. X squared times x squared would be equal to x to the 4th. But notice this is multiplication here, and what we're doing in this problem is addition. So if I have one apple and I add another apple, I get 2 apples. So we have 2x squared equals 400. Okay. Now what?
We square root both sides.
Well, first we want to isolate the x squared before we take the square root of both sides.
So divide by 2.
There you go. So now we have x squared equals 200.
200.
Okay, so now you can take the square root of both sides, and x is equal to what?
X is equal to 14.14213.
Notice that that's not an answer on there. In other words, that calculator is going to help you sometimes, but it's really going to hurt you sometimes also. I guess you could take that answer and figure out which of these is equal to that number. It's not a bad way to go. Let's examine that approach. In other words, they allow you to use a calculator here, so we know x is the square root of 200, first of all, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the question is, what is the square root of 200? And your calculator told you what?
14.1421356.
Which of those answers is that number?
G.
Has to be, right? Certainly it's an F.
Yeah.
It's not H, not J. And this number here is bigger than 14. So the only thing left is G. So the calculator helped you a little bit. In other words, you could actually use the calculator to get the right answer. But let's look at this a little bit more, because you really need to know how to simplify problems like this. How do I simplify the square root of 200? Well, let me look for factors of 200 where one of the factors is a perfect square. So how about that's the square root of 100 times the square root of 2? In other words, the square root of a times b is equal to the square root of a times the square root of b. So I can say the square root of 200 is equal to the square root of 100 times the square root of 2. What's the square root of 100?
10.
There's my answer. Notice that, notice that by doing it without a calculator, I actually get the answer that's shown. They really kind of want you to do this without a calculator. And that's why their answers are exact answers. 10 square root of 2 is an exact answer as opposed to 14.14, which is actually an approximate answer that's been rounded off. All right, let's go to the next page, 256. Okay, what is 3a minus 4 times a plus 2?
It would be 3a squared minus 4a plus 2. Oh, wait, no.
Make
Plus
sure
8.
make sure that you multiply. In other words, they tell you FOIL. I'm sure you've heard of FOIL. And FOIL means first, outside, inside, last. So the first term is going to be 3a squared. The outside terms are going to be plus 6a, right? 3a times 2.
Yeah.
Inside terms are going to be minus 4a. And the last two terms are going to be minus 8. And now I can combine these two, because they're the same things, they're a's, to come up with 3a squared plus 2a minus 8. Here's your answer.
Yeah. I forgot about the
C.
3a times 2.
Okay, when you're multiplying polynomials times each other, you don't really need FOIL. Let's throw FOIL out the window. What do we need to know? We need to know that we need to take every term and multiply it by every other term. So I need to multiply 3a times a. I need to multiply 3a times 2. I need to multiply minus 4 times a and minus 4 times 2. So this method covers a problem like, what if I was going to multiply this by this? In other words, here I have a binomial times a trinomial. Well, if I use FOIL, it doesn't do me any good, right? FOIL doesn't cover this. But if I use my definition, where we're going to take every term and multiply it by every other term, then I end up with 3a times that, 3a times that, 3a times that, and then minus 4 times that, minus 4 times that, minus 4 times that. And then I end up with something that I can simplify. So is all you really need to know when you're multiplying a polynomial by a polynomial is make sure you multiply every term by every term.
Yeah.
That's what FOIL actually does. You'll notice it does first, then it does outside, then it does inside, and then it does last. All right. $38. The midpoint is at 4.8. I'm going to make 4.8 right there. The ends of this line are 4, 2. So 4, 2 must be about there, right? And that's point A. And point C are 4, S. Well, 4, S is way up here because 4, 8 is the midpoint. And the coordinates of C are 4, S. So we have a straight line here where that's the midpoint.
Great. So this means the S would have to be 14 because A is 6 points below the midpoint.
Exactly.
So it means it would have to be 6 points above, which means it would be 4, 14, which would be K.